Alright, we are recording for chapter 12 of Star Trek The Motion Picture Novelization, and I'm gonna be technical. I need to be technical here, but I'm gonna be technical. First things first, though, and it is technical. This is also a technical thing. Hang on. I have a thing working there that'll make a noise in a little bit. Anyway, so the end of the previous chapter, wormholes made, the asteroid is in there, so it's like, oh no, we're in danger, all that stuff, right? But it's also in the wormhole, there's this time distortion thing. Pack, in, 12. Ellie's voice showed the time distortion that was affecting everything around them. Kirk fought to make his brain decipher all this naturally. Aaliyah's words must have been impact in 12 seconds. No kidding. There's one of two ways of doing this. This is neither of them. Okay, that's basically how I'm going to put it. Either, for this time distortion, you have it written in there phonetically, so it's actually going to be difficult for somebody to read. Okay, but this is literally, you're just doubling some of the syllables. Not even all of them. You're just doubling some of them. So it's very clear to the reader exactly what's being said. So you either, you either make it harder to read by you have it be more phonetic and just drawn out, and you could do that, and it would be hard to read. That I've never learned how to read phonetically, and by that I mean, with all the upside down letters and all. Do something like that, and then it's like, okay, the person is translating. So it's difficult on the reader and on the person, or don't bother with it at all. Do not bother with trying to capture it in the words people are saying. Don't bother with it there at all. Just spend the time describing how it's a challenge, in this case, for Kirk to understand. So you just focus on, and that you might be able to do it in just one sentence, in just one extra sentence. How he's having to take so much time to process it, or even have him trying and struggling, from him. So it's if we read as one sentence, maybe have him reading, and it's building up slowly. Have him describing. It's 12. She must mean 12 seconds. It's that is kind of what we're getting here, because we don't hear her saying seconds. He's just assuming it. So you could do something like that, where he's trying to skip ahead because he can't be delayed. But this, where it's just in the middle, it's you're saying it's a hard time, but at the same time you also wrote in a way that's not a hard time for the reader. It's either make sure we are sharing the experience, or just tell us what the experience is. Don't try to do this thing in the middle that is boring. Well, no, it's not boring. It's aggravating to me. Then we get the whole ready phasers, and then belay that. Deco's why? He's all confused. I do have issues with that, but I first want to get to this next highlight on the page. Torpedoes away! Because that's kind of how it's actually said in the movie. The starship spit out huge balls of light energy, which seemed to float slowly. I got a problem with that, because the torpedoes are physical objects. They're not light energy. Although, maybe it's possible that at this point... hang on. Yeah. Every photon warhead they referred to also. Maybe it's something at this point Roddenberry hadn't determined and decided, or somebody hadn't told him yet, that, hey, a photon torpedo, it's actually got an antimatter warhead. It's called a photon torpedo, I think, because it's actually supposed to be traveling at the speed of light. Yeah. But no, that is, I remember seeing somewhere years ago that is, in fact, the speed it travels at, which is why I always assumed it's just... why it's called a photon torpedo. But it's balls of light energy. It's no, no. Anyway, I got problems though with the whole belaying the order. Because, and we do get some explanation, but I also have to reject it because of other things that have been stated already. Why does Chekhov not know that the phasers won't work? He recently went through schooling to be qualified for the defense station. And he's part of the regular bridge crew of the Enterprise. So he would be assigned to that station, which means he'd have to know its protocols. Decker shouldn't have to give the order, right? Chekhov should just know, that won't work. This is an emergency situation. He told me to destroy the object. That's how I'm going to interpret the order torpedoes. Not even having to worry about the phasers. Doesn't need Decker to tell. Nope, because it's also the phasers shouldn't even be responsive. They should even be telling him that they're offline. Okay? You don't need Decker making any statement here. If he wasn't there, Chekhov should still be able to handle this. So I also have that issue. But there's others that we will get to later. There's also another thing here this is, again, somewhat technical. In the previous chapter, it stated that the navigational deflectors were inoperative. And yet, after the thing is destroyed, the pieces of it were slamming into the ship's forward deflector shields. They were down. They were inoperative. They weren't there. Why are they now there? Because this is, in theory, about 10 seconds later. Now, if you want to argue, oh wait, no, it was actually the shields. They raised the shields, which I could see an argument that those are different from the deflector. Okay, that's fine. But the shields are a lot more powerful, so is this as big a threat as it would be otherwise? I mean, it's like I'm really confused by what the threat is here, because they were down, now suddenly they're up. Like, yeah. So I do think it would have been better if it was not a slamming into the deflector shields. Also says that those not deflected became sparkles of red and then white flame as they were destroyed by friction against the vessel's force field screens. And then one large chunk hit and shook the entire ship. It's like, yeah, whatever. But it still is, like, just, I would have preferred if it were instead something like the smaller pieces did just strike the ship. No reason they couldn't. In theory, the ship should have some degree of armor. It shouldn't be thin. So it can just take the smaller hits. And as far as the large one, maybe just have Sulu bank out of the way. You can just try to bank out of the way. Do something so that they just avoid that collision. But instead, you're giving shields that aren't actually supposed to be up. So, yeah, I got problems with that. Okay. We then get to the whole... Hang on. Okay. Kirk wants to see Decker separately. McCoy comes along. And even Decker does explain. Here, let me see if I can get that line. Why was my phaser order counteracted? Sir, the Enterprise redesign increases phaser power by channeling it through the main engines. When they went into antimatter imbalance, the phasers were automatically cut off. Okay, so he gives that explanation. Fine. This is a problem later on, for something that stayed later on, though. But let me get to this. Kirk remembered seeing the early specs on the phaser design change. He had protested strongly and then had savagely ridiculed a design engineer's reply that a starship would have no use for phaser batteries unless its warp engines were operating. He had let himself assume that Starfleet had listened to his experience and had accepted his recommendation on this. What had happened to his mind down there to make a foolish assumption like that? So he's now asking why wouldn't I realize that they're idiots? But it is like, that engineer's dumb. I mean, that dude needs to be fired. Should not be. I mean, obviously you need access to. I remember. I think it was Modern Marvels. Okay, I could be wrong on that. But they were talking about. I believe it was the F-22. It might have been the F-35. Don't remember. But when it was still in prototype, they had multiple of them, and put military pilots. I'm not sure which branch. Maybe it was Air Force. Maybe not. Put them on there. And I think it was the F-22, because the F-22, one thing's really neat about that, it is just itself a stealth plane, and it had on board weapons and radar systems that you could attack an enemy before you achieve line of sight, over the horizon, okay? Like, you cannot, it is impossible to see them. It's not a question of zoom or anything. It is not possible to see them. The Earth is blocking your view, but you can still get a lock on them and fire a missile at them, right? But what is it that every pilot asked for when giving feedback? Want a gun. And they were like, Why? Because all that. Because we might get in a dogfight, and then I need a gun. Yes, correct answer. Okay, I'm saying one thing I take away from that, and I can understand some people being like, "Oh, that's silly," or trying to equate that to a bayonet. It's like you need the fallback, right? The idea of if you don't have warp, then obviously you're not in a situation where you need phasers. It's like these operate in these are different things. There's missiles that can go over the horizon. That's great when your enemy is over there. But what happens if it's about 100 yards away? Actually, I'm not sure. Some missiles may not arm immediately upon being fired. So like 100 yards might be like, can't do anything there. I mean, it's like, but bullets will still work. Yeah, I mean, it's... You do need that. This dude, that dude is an idiot, okay? And anyone that was like, oh yeah, obviously you're still idiots, okay? Just, that is stupid. Kirk was right. But it's also the idea that he would make this suggestion, but then it does, because this sounds like, the early specs of the phaser design change. He also saw the design changes later. At least I'm assuming so, because I'm pretty sure there was a reference to, like, in the middle. Or maybe it was just in the middle of construction, he went and visited the ship. You'd think he'd also have been looking at the plans, because it does say he was looking at the plans. Kirk should have known, okay? I'm sorry, it just, to me, I feel it is complete contrivance that Kirk doesn't know, okay? Because either it's, I just see it as the moment you said he looked at the designs, he now does know at least the big stuff, and this is a big one. Kirk has to know it. This is pure contrivance and pisses me off. Okay, you know what? Before... there's some things I'm skipping over here, and I'll come back to them. It's just to keep it more coherent together. So this is Kirk continuing to think. It was Decker who had been in charge of the Enterprise and had let that redesign error get past him. Kirk told himself that he would never have permitted it, even if he had to buck it all the way to the Federation Council. But then Decker had never commanded a heavy cruiser in deep space. So this is Kirk's thinking about that. Decker's ultimately responsible. Yes, he is. Yes, no. The engineer is responsible, but so is Decker. It's Decker's ship. If he's in charge of the redesign... Well, I'm sorry, but I would even... And I think that maybe Kirk's point here, to a certain degree, that he'd never commanded a heavy cruiser in deep space. But there's also an element of... Decker should have been able to just say to the Council, no, this is my ship. I'm in charge of the design here. We're doing it this way. We are not installing it that way. I need those to be reliable. 100% of the time, okay? Like, if phasers are down, it's because phasers are down, not because some unrelated system is down. All right? He should have been able to do that. And especially the fact that Kirk had also argued, why wouldn't he have heard of that? He would have been able to say, Admiral Kirk is agreeing with me on this. We're in agreement in this. You need to not force this change. We don't want this change. Why are you forcing it on us? I mean, there's so many ways I feel that Decker should have been able to argue successfully. But now let's get to a dinkus here that we're now Decker's point of view. Kirk was not stupid, but he flat did not know the ship. Decker did know it, limitations and all. Again, Kirk actually should know. Decker, had argued the phaser design modification up through Starfleet's Design Bureau. Finally, he and Scott had agreed that once they had her out of orbit, they would damn well rig a bypass circuit. Okay, this is not helping my opinion of Decker, to be clear. Because he doesn't say this to Kirk. This is him in his own head. Okay? It should... When it was the whole... Hang on. So the Enterprise redesign increases phaser power by channeling through the main engines. When they went into antimatter imbalance, the phasers were automatically cut off. He shouldn't have ended it there. Or he just shouldn't have said it like that. He should have said, the redesign called for this modification. Scotty and I were planning to get rid of it. All right, just look, it's a dumb design. We shouldn't have it that way, but we haven't been able to change it yet. He should have done that, because for one thing, at this point, he doesn't need to be challenging Kirk directly. He can have, if he were to say that, it would be a moment for him to bond with Kirk, that basically saying, look, your order wasn't wrong because your instinct was right. Starfleet's fucking morons, all right? And I know that, you know that, you got caught by their stupidity, all right? I'm saying something where it's like, look, dude, we got, you're not, we're in agreement here, okay? Which, we want to change that. Once Scotty and I can get the warp engines working, we'll do it. All right? It's half done already. We'll get it done. Don't worry about it. Okay? We got it. He could have done something there that would have been positive. Not just a straight challenging that's like, I'm just telling you how it is because you don't know, old man. It's like, not, well, he's not saying with attitude, but there is like, really? I mean, there is an implied, you don't know what you're talking about, old man. And it just, he shouldn't have wasted that opportunity. Yeah. And it's still, it also goes back to the whole, Kirk would have known, and Deco should not have allowed it on the ship. I mean, simple as that. That design engineer was wrong. And that should have been, if Kirk's arguing for it, and he was master of the ship for 5 years, and an admiral now, if Deco's arguing for it, and he's the guy whose ship it is, and is in charge of the redesign, guess what? He gets the decision, not the asshole that's sitting in an office in Starfleet Command. Okay. Okay. So going back now, just because those are pages apart, but here. So after the whole Kirk being like, I told them not to do that, and I thought that they would actually listen. I'm sorry, just, you want to make him a living legend. You know what you could have done, and in a way that also would address an issue later on that McCoy brings up. Later up, that's how I got to that tongue tie. McCoy brings up that if Kirk is successful, he's going to keep the ship. He's going to do everything he can to keep the Enterprise. But you know what could have worked? Hey, Captain, now Admiral Kirk, you are great. You know all this. You have all this wonderful experience. You're amazing. We want to show you something, right? Here's a prototype for a new ship. We're thinking the Kirk class. Give us all of your input. We want you stamp of approval on all this. Do you have any idea how good an idea that is? I'm not saying that as a, oh yes, my good. No, I mean like in universe, that would be a great idea because it keeps him out of everyone's hair. It is pure desk job. It's going to be satisfying to him though, and he's actually going to produce something, right? He might be like, cool, I need Scotty, which then takes Scotty out of commission as far as the Enterprise is concerned. Okay, yeah, that sucks. But at the same time, it's like you would have probably one of the best, most competently designed ships ever. And it would have made sense. I'm saying, what other desks do? But also, that would be a spot where Kirk would be arguing, no, you can't do it this way, which then gets rid of this whole issue. I hate contrivances. And there's so many technical problems here that, anyway. So now, permission to speak freely, sir, asked Decker. Granted. Sir, you haven't logged a single star hour in over 2.5 years. That, plus your unfamiliarity with the ship's redesign, in my opinion, seriously jeopardizes our mission. Dude, shut your mouth. Okay, Decker, you are an idiot. This is a terrible line for him to have, for 2 reasons. 1, you haven't logged a star hour in 2.5 years. What have you been doing? Where have you been, Decker? Because, as I recall, you're in charge of the ship here, the refitting of the Enterprise, which, where is that? In orbit around Earth. So what star hours are you logging? What star hours did you log before that as captain? There's been no indication that he has any captain experience prior to this. That this is his first command. So Kirk has the thousands of, well, actually I'm not sure if it would be thousands, but he's got however many from the prior 5 years on that ship. You do not say that to him, okay? Because you have none. You are not arguing from a place of authority here, Decker. Keep your mouth shut on that. Never say that to Kirk. Never say that to anyone, arguably. Okay? I'm just like, because it's like, dude, you don't have the experience to say that to him. And also the whole unfamiliarity thing. As I've already said, it has been stated in the book, Kirk did look at the planes. He is familiar with them. It is a contrivance that he doesn't know about the phaser thing, okay? And I'm not happy with that explanation. That's just they ignored him. He still would have been studying the plans, okay? He cares about the ship. And if he also would have been probably looking at it again. I mean, it's... I said I'd be getting technical, and I meant it. And I don't think I'm done yet. I'm not sure. Let me check the notes. There is that. Yes, that's technical, but not as far as the actual technology. Oh, that's also right here. But yeah, I mean, it's just... Decker, the only way Decker has no more ability to argue from a place of authority like that line was than Scotty. Okay? Scotty, in a way, has more because he does have the hours logged. Not in command, but still logged as ship's engineer for a starship for 5 years. Okay, so Decker is below Scotty in that regard. Scotty would never say that to Kirk. He would understand the respect Kirk has earned, deserves, and that you don't make a statement like that. Maybe it is... Okay. If you want to try arguing that, well, it's just Decker is upset. He is being aggressive, foolishly aggressive with Kirk because he's pissed. Fine. Here's the problem with that. He needs to be a professional. And also, this is well over a dozen hours now since, like 14, 15 hours since Kirk took command. Okay? He needs to have cooled off by now. He needs to be professional. And he also should be thinking, because he should be cool and should be professional, I need to work with this man, not against him. I shouldn't be challenging him. I should be complimenting him, as in completing, not compliment as in making him feel better, as in talking about. No. But just, it's this damn stupid design that Scotty and I were going to solve. We haven't had time yet. We'll get to it as soon as we can. But that's what it was. You're basically saying, look, it's not your fault. Should have been it. But it's also, Chekhov should have caught it as well. Anyway, so now we get to Bones, who he's talking to Kirk. Decker's left. You pulled every string in the book short of blackmail to get the Enterprise. Maybe even that. Even as he said it, McCoy's eyes were shrewdly measuring Kirk's reaction. It's like, I got a problem with this. I got problems with lots of this stuff, don't I? Yeah. I mean, try to better fill the frame. Why would McCoy know? And it's like, hang on, I advanced to the next. You pulled every string in the book short of blackmail to get the Enterprise. It's like, how would he know? He shouldn't have had enough time. I mean, this at best should be a guess, but it reads too much like certainty. And there's also, Kirk didn't really pull any strings. It's like he got the emergency call, he went there, got more information, he got more information at the Gibraltar thing. Then he went and, did kind of blackmail, extort Nagoya here. But it's like he didn't pull strings. It's just I'm the one who needs to do this. I'm the one with the experience, not Decker. Like, you need me there. That's it. That is he was, like, morally extorting Nagoya, which you can say is bad. That's fine. I'm not going to argue on that point here. But it's just, it's not like he's now used up a bunch of favors, right? He's not pulled many strings. He just went to the top man and was like, dude, needs to be me. That's it. So, McCoy is trying to argue that Kirk is obsessed with the Enterprise and getting command back. That's fine. But I feel it can be handled far better than this line. Okay, so moving on. Getting closer to where I already read, where we swap over to Decker's point of view. Kirk does say to Scotty, I want you to get me an alternate power circuit to the phasers which bypasses the engines. I don't care what it costs in power, blah, blah, blah. Scotty responds, aye, sir, and I believe if you'll ask Mr. Decker about this. So Mr. Scott, I will discuss it with my executive if or when I believe it necessary to do so, Kirk out. So that might have been Scotty trying to say Decker and I were already planning on that. And just Kirk is pissed, so he's not listening. And it's like, Decker should have said it. Shouldn't have to be Scotty here. Because it's also, the way Decker was described was, he might be internally angry, but that he is controlled. And in fact, I'd have to go back and reread it. I don't feel like doing that at the moment. It might have even been, not that he may have had a certain almost perverse satisfaction that this was an opportunity for him to argue to Kirk, you're not the right person to command, I am. So yeah, it just, yeah. I do not like how a lot of that was written. That you could still have had the issue, could still have used it to show that Kirk was unfamiliar, but you could have done so much better so it's not everyone's an idiot. Okay. Then we got this that I'm honestly a little unsure about the meaning here. So now we were still following Decker. He runs into Ilea, who heads back to her quarters. And then we are back to just Decker's mind. Concerning how he had left her and that without even saying goodbye. And, well, here, not highlighted, but if I had seen you again, would you have been able to say it? She hesitated for a very long time, then shook her head no. She whirled and left. Okay. So, just for a little bit of a setup there, that he had regrets as well, but he had to get out there. He knew it was a problem. He regretted it had been necessary to run from her. But he had known that the Deltan unity through sex carried a powerful attraction for him. Let me continue, because I'm uncertain about what the concept is here. But it was his mother who had raised the son while Matt Decker roamed the stars. So it's just talking about Matt Decker's son, what was expected of Decker here. Solid, reliable, old line Starfleet. But it was his mother who had raised the son while Commodore Decker roamed the stars, and she had taken their son into the fringes of the new human movement, giving Will Decker a taste for the unusual reward potentials of unity. So, what I'm assuming here that Roddenberry is trying to describe is the idea that of finding unity by one means or another, and that the new humans have been finding, let's just say intellectually, which I can have a commentary on that, but I want to move on a little bit before coming to it. So it's like maybe they had this unity stuff, and that's very attractive to me. He had learned that while he was a child, and that for the Deltans they've achieved it by this unity through sex. Yes. Which is, it kind of comes back to how I'm annoyed by the whole Ilea referring to them as a sexually immature species. But she's the one that, I was upset then with the whole, she's the one that can't control her pheromones just because she's around unfamiliar people. It's like, that's a terrible response. It's like, oh, I'm feeling uncomfortable around you. Let me make you sexually excited. That's a great idea. But this seems to suggest, I'm guessing that they mean like a free love thing for the Deltans, and that's how they have achieved unity through their species. I'm not entirely sure there, because it still seems kind of stupid. Well, okay, let's just set aside, there's already some stupidity there, but let's set aside the stupidity of that you could have a whole species united that way. I mean, it's not necessarily like the Vulcans. We've not gotten something set up here because the Vulcans as a species do have a problem with the whole deeply passionate emotions and need to control it, so they all have the religion of logic, which I'll come back to that. Like, we don't have a setup for that with the Deltans for that to be how they unify, but you know what, let's set that aside. It still is. I can understand the whole, oh, we want a unity. The problem is that you're not going to achieve that. Sex is actually a very dangerous way of doing it as well, because it's like you would then produce children potentially from this, which you would then have the disunity of the persons being responsible to raise them. So like you're then creating families which are going to be separate from the unity that you're achieving. So it's like sex actually doesn't make much sense there as the way you would achieve unity. Plus, again, it's the whole you're uncomfortable, so you're gonna try to, I mean, sexually immature species. It's like you would consider it mature if the men there did just start having sex with you, or did take you. I'm saying, what is going on here? It really is odd, unless we interpret it a little differently. That unity through sex is referring to that man and woman become one through sex. It's like that's not what really is described here. That's not what I think, especially in the context of what follows, and that I already read about the whole the unusual reward potentials for unity. Of unity. It's like that's not really the implication, but it does make the ending, because I know how it ends from the movie. Decker and Ilea, well, the V'ger version of Ilea, achieve unity and unity with V'ger. So it's like, then actually does kind of, that unity all comes around. That kind of makes some sense. I'm okay with that idea. But it's like, it doesn't make much sense. But coming back to the community thing. Wait, did I start saying that? I know I meant to start saying. Anyway, community instead of unity. It's that you can find unity with many groups. These are called communities. So it's like how Star Trek fans is a community, and there is a certain unity in there. There's also plenty of disagreement, yes. Disunity, you know, it's like, which is better, Star Trek To the Wrath of Khan or Star Trek 6? I think Star Trek 6 is better, at least as far as the movies are concerned. Don't get me wrong, though, okay? Don't get me wrong. Wrath of Khan is an amazing film. It is truly a superior film. I just think Star Trek 6 is better, especially the director's cut. Okay, especially that. But you will never hear me insulting Wrath of Khan. It has certain issues there, and I mean, just to be very quick with it, I like the political thriller nature of Star Trek 6. Wrath of Khan is much more just an action film. 6 has action and that other element, has that whole conspiracy there. I like that. I find that more interesting and more depth. That's why I like it more. They're both very good films, and Wrath of Khan, very well executed. So it's like, yes, there can be disagreement in it, but that's just normal. You still have unity as far as the love of Star Trek. So this idea that the new humans are concerned, there's plenty of unity. There's also the whole nature of a starship to a certain degree, certainly when you watch through the original series, that the starship operates best when there is unity amongst the crew, which is everyone knowing what they're supposed to do and doing it to the greatest of their ability. It's like, this language is probably just setting up the whole unity with V'ger concept that will arrive at the end. That's fine. But it still feels poorly handled here. And it's, yeah. Again, what is the distinction here that it's the new humans wanted as though the rest don't? It's like, no, I mean, this may also sound weird, but even a chain of command is an example of unity. Because you are unified around the chain of command. That, yeah, guess what? Chekhov is not in charge of the ship. He's not the captain. The captain is the captain. He's at the top of the chain. Chekhov is lower. That's fine. They're still unified around, this is the chain. This is Chekhov. This is Kirk or Decker. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's still a unity. So if you think unity must be flat, you're wrong. I I'm sorry, but you are. Even if it is like an intellectual, like for the New Humans, I think it started suggesting that they may have thought that they were achieving unity through some sort of intellectual means. That's fine, but some people are going to be smarter than others. Some people are going to have greater intellects than others. I mean, yes, we're all unified bio intellects. But I've read more books than he has. I mean, it's like, okay, you're still unified there, but you still have those differences, and technically that would make the one who's read more books higher than the other. It's like, it's not flat. It's a little, that person's up higher, another person's up low. Nothing wrong with that. That's normal. So I just, maybe it is more just mocking the New Humans. I don't know, but still is. I get the idea of eventually the unity with Reacher and the fake Ilea. I get that. This doesn't feel like a setup towards that. Hopefully there'll just be more discussion of it later. Of unity and the desire for unity. I hope so. That would make sense. Because it doesn't make sense as a setup. Anyway. Another thing here. And this is not going to make me rant as much. It is still kind of technical. So it's the long-range shuttle has arrived. And Roddenberry was just going off about how it really shouldn't be called a shuttle. It is a powerful warp power craft which could have outraced the starships of only 50 years ago. I just include this trim, but okay. So for reference, the Wright Flyer was 1903. As I recall, the ME-262 was 1943. That was a jet fighter. We went from first powered human flight to the jet engine in 40 years. And I'm supposed to be impressed by, in 50 years, you managed to get a shuttle be significantly faster. A shuttle be significantly faster than the ships from 50 years prior. What? I'm sorry, but 50 years is a very, very long time for technology. I was like, even 50 years ago, for car engines, we've developed so much. And by the way, I did actually once look at that. This was a while ago. I specifically was comparing, so this would have been early 2000s, and only basic stuff, but comparing the Model T against a PT Cruiser, which was fairly new, and we had one. They both had, actually, believe it or not, about the same mileage, about the same miles per gallon. Model T and the PT Cruiser. The PT Cruiser is also, like 4 times the mass and capable of much higher speeds, much higher acceleration, and greater hauling capacity. But, it's the same amount of same miles per gallon. There is a lot of technological innovation that occurs. That was longer than 50 years, but still, is even 50 years is quite long. And by the way, for anyone, just to, generally speaking, there is not a push for efficiency in car engines unless there is an issue with fuel supply. At least in America, by and large, we want more powerful engines because that means we can get up to speed faster, which can be a safety thing. That means we can carry more. That means we can't, haul more loads. That means we can have larger vehicles, so like an SUV. We can also have more things in the vehicle, such as air conditioning, which takes some of the power. Your mileage goes down when you have the AC on because it's having to power that. And also all the different electronics and such. Excuse me. Those all have to be powered, so a more powerful engine supports that. There's also, at least in America, a lot of power has to be spent on various kinds of safety measures or just environmental requirements. So that's one thing that I've seen talked about is in Europe, they have, I need to finish reading that, by the way. I had more than just one thing highlighted. But in Europe, they do have some vehicles that, even if they're the same model, technically they will have ones that's like 40, 50 miles to the gallon while we get 20 or 30 here. And it's like, yeah, they have different safety requirements, though, than we do. So I don't remember if this is an accurate... Well, it is an accurate example. I just don't remember the positions. That's like in America, we have safety measures, safety requirements for vehicles that's like to survive being T-boned. Whereas in Europe, it's for head-on collisions. So they emphasize one over the other. And I just have it flipped like who's who, but I'm pretty sure that is one of the distinctions. It wasn't that long ago that I saw, like within the past year, might have been longer, but they've done studies and found that, yeah, it's basically the same. that a European vehicle is not safer than an American vehicle, and American vehicles are not safer than European vehicles. It's just the emphasis is different, but all basically balances out. But it's also the greater efficiency in Europe. Well, that's for two reasons. One is, generally speaking, their fuel prices are higher than ours. But also, I think some of it is their different safety regulations allow them to have lighter vehicles, which will make them more efficient. Because they're emphasizing the safety in other ways. So, yeah. Alright, let me finish reading this, though. It was indeed as foolish as calling the USS Enterprise a heavy cruiser, which it was most definitely not. It was the most powerful Federation vessel in existence, deserving at least the old naval description of battleship, although some admiral or statesman in the distant past had apparently seen the term cruiser as more civilized and less militaristic. That's actually not the case. I looked this up not that long ago because I just found one thing I remember seeing yeah, it might have been like a decade ago, was that destroyers in World War II were small and light vessels. That they were meant to be able to weave in and out very rapidly. And I think I'd even seen mentioned that they potentially would maneuver to take a torpedo hit so something like a cruiser or battleship doesn't take it. So say I associate them with being smaller. Well, over time, at least in the American Navy, ships have just gotten bigger. So the destroyer is actually like the size of a cruiser or heavy cruiser. I don't necessarily know battleship, but it's more that we've actually just been growing things up larger. So the battleship isn't a term used anymore. Not because we don't have battleships. We technically, well, we do and we don't. I don't think we really have the large naval batteries that you would associate with a battleship on anything anymore. I mean, yeah, we do still have batteries, but it's not like the dreadnoughts almost that you would see in World War II. We had multiple stacks of these things. I don't think we do that anymore because we have cruise missiles and such that can be launched off of these things. So we do still have main guns, but we have these other tools. So, like, battleship has not been dropped because, oh, well, we don't want to sound militaristic. No, other classes have moved up, and we've diversified in a way that the image you may have in your mind for a battleship isn't actually what is being used anymore. But if it were for pure size, we would, like a battleship class, if it were like a heavyweight or super heavyweight kind of thing, there are ships that do fall under that. So this idea that the Enterprise would be considered a battleship, if not for this, it's like, oh, if you're just going by like weight class, no, you would still call it a battleship. And it is the idea of a cruiser going up, because a cruiser should have been lighter, but those have grown as well. I don't remember what the new term is for like the smaller ships, but it is, I think even those, they've started taking on other responsibilities, other places in the Navy as well. I'm trying to remember. But it was like, I'm having to guess here, but I think it was something like they are, they have shallow drafts so they can get closer to shore. So that, I can't remember what the term, it starts with an L, and refers to that area that is coming near shore. That's like, that is technically what a destroyer would be, as far as size goes and speed. I don't quite remember. And I hope I'm not just pulling this out of nowhere. I could be completely wrong. Look it up yourself. But it's still, I'm pretty sure that it's, we didn't drop Battleship for such political reasons. It was just, no, we kept making it bigger. we just kept making everything smaller than it bigger. I mean, another way to put it is, because this is the Enterprise refit, and I think the refit is actually larger than the original Enterprise, the original Constitution class. So it's basically, well, the Constitution class was a heavy cruiser. the Constitution refit, therefore it's still a heavy cruiser, even though it's like, well, no, it's larger, it should be in different. No, we're still naming it heavy cruiser. That's kind of what's been happening. All right. One last thing before just mentioning Spock has arrived. Yeah, I want you to hear this, Mr. Decker, said Kirk, touching the log button on the Science Council. Captain's log supplemental. No commendation from Mr. Decker in that he took appropriate and proper action in countermanding my phaser order during the wormhole emergency. His knowledge and prompt action saved the ship. Kirk out. Thank you, Captain, said Decker. Kirk found himself liking Decker better for the fact that he had not said, I was just doing my job, or some nonsense like that. Commendation had been for doing that job exceptionally well. This is kind of what I mean. Decker may have been aware of that and just the thank you. He knew to make that being the response. Instead of a, I want to say false humility, but it doesn't necessarily have to be false. It could just be, that I was only doing my job, like, I don't need that, kind of thing. That kind of humility there. That would have made it worse. And let's just say Decker had known that. Because there are people that maybe that would come up, it's like, be like that, but it's like, no, just say thank you. And leave it at that. And Kirk's reaction then, he's glad that that's what he went for. That's good. But that then goes back to the whole what I was saying. Decker should have said, it's a dumb design. Scotty and I were going to change it. We haven't gotten around to it yet. Could have done it back there as well. And it would be serving the same purpose here as assuming here that Decker chose to say thank you, sir, as opposed to, well, thank you, Captain, said the other. Yeah. So that's where the chapter ends. And one thing I will also add that's kind of small, but it does annoy me. Decker is referred to as Commander at one point. It just... He doesn't need to be temporarily demoted in rank, okay? I guess... Well, actually, no. He doesn't need to do that. Because think about it, later on... Now, true, it is later on, years later. Spock is the first officer to Kirk on the Enterprise. Like, in Final Frontier, and certainly in Undiscovered Country, Star Trek 6. In Star Trek 6, Spock is also of rank captain. But Kirk is the captain. So you might now refer to him as Captain Spock just for clarity purposes. But it annoyed me previously. I don't remember if I said I hope I did. I think I did. Kirk is still an admiral. He's the captain of the ship, but his rank is still admiral. Decker still has the rank of captain. He's not the rank of commander. The demotion was... I don't believe that was functionally necessary. It maybe just for clarity, but just... You don't, like, somebody referring to him as Commander Decker. It's like, no, you could still refer to him as Captain Decker, because that is his proper rank. It's like the whole thing with Nurse Chapel, that how previously had mentioned that she had a PhD. Then she should have been referred to as Dr. Chapel at times. Not because she's the MD, not because she is an MD, that's McCoy. No, but because she is of that, she does deserve that title. So it's, yeah. Some of the little things like that, I think it is just, it's being brought up, I want to talk about it. And I would do this when I was doing video game reviews as well. Not that I would always write them in, but when I would be just recording and talking to the mic. Because I'm being frustrated by other things, that's just elevating all of my frustrations. Still, there are those key frustrations, like the whole thing with Kirk not knowing about the face. That's a major frustration to me, okay? But because of that, it is elevating this stuff like Decker should still be Captain Decker. Because that is his rank. It's not his position on the ship, but it is his rank. So, but just for clarity, and that when I would do the video game reviews, basically my rule of thumb, because even if it made it into a note, if I didn't then write about it, it's because, yeah, it doesn't actually matter. Like later on, I would calm down and I'd forget some of the stuff because it ultimately didn't matter. It's just those things that were elevated up. Yeah, don't need to write about them. But the things that were up here that would cause an elevation, gotta talk about those. So, since I don't do written reviews when I'm done with this stuff, I just try to talk about it all at the end. Some of this stuff, yeah, wouldn't be brought up because it wouldn't matter at that point. Or I'd have forgotten. Hopefully I won't forget about the phaser thing, because I'm sorry, that really... I'll probably remember just because of the whole Kirk had looked at the plans, he should have known this, he should have known that, all these different things, so... See you next time.